This is video 2, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. And on this video, we're going to first of all explain what an X-intercept is. It's where the line crosses the X-axis. The Y-intercept is where the line crosses the Y-axis. And more importantly, guys, we're going to be able to find the X and Y-intercepts. So how do we find the X-intercept? You must set Y equal to 0 and solve. How do you find your Y-intercept? You must set X equal to 0 and solve. This is something that you need to memorize. Okay, so to find the X-intercept, you set Y equal to 0 and solve. To find the Y-intercept, you set the X equal to 0 and solve. But I don't want you to just memorize things in this class. I want you to understand things in this class. So I have an XY plane right here, and let's get you to understand why. To find the X-intercept, we must set the Y equal to 0. So first of all, an X-intercept is where the line crosses the X-axis. So let's say I have a blue line, and let's say it's coming this way, and it crosses right there. That's where the blue line crosses. What would that X-intercept value be? What is the X-intercept value right there? -6, right? So the X-intercept is -6. And if I told you, give me a specific coordinate, like what would this actual coordinate be in terms of X and Y? What would that coordinate be? -6, comma, 0. Perfect, right? Now what if I had a different blue line, maybe one that's going like this? Bam, crosses right there. What would that X-intercept be? That would be -3, comma, 0. Okay? What if I had a vertical line going like this and then crossing right there? What kind of X-intercept would that be? What's the coordinate of that X-intercept? That's the coordinate -1, comma, 0, right? What if I had a blue line over here crossing right there? That's 4, comma, 0. Okay, so why am I telling you to show me all these X-intercepts or give me the coordinates of all these X-intercepts? What do you notice in every single one of these coordinates? The Y value is 0, right? So your X is -6, your Y is 0. Your X right here is -3, your Y is 0. Your Y is 0. So on all of these, your Y value is 0. That's a fact, guys. On all of these, on any X-intercept, any point on the X-axis is going to have the Y value 0. You guys agree with that? Okay, so any point on the X-axis is going to have the coordinate that has a Y value 0. So because of that fact, when you want to find your X-intercept value, you're going to set Y equal to 0. Because it's something that we know. The Y has to be 0. The Y value 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 has to be 0 in order for it to be on the Y-axis. And that's what an X-intercept is. It's the location of where it crosses your X-axis. So right here, when it says find the X and Y-intercepts, how do you find the X-intercept? In order to find your X-intercept, we must set Y equal to 0. Because we know that every single X-intercept value is going to have the Y equal to 0. So algebraically, to find the X-intercept, you set the Y equal to 0 and you solve. Algebraically, if you want to find the Y-intercept values, like let me draw a bunch of lines and tell me what's the Y-intercept of the flat line crossing through that point right there. What's the Y-intercept? What's the coordinate? 0, 5?
Yeah. No, 5, 0. No, 0, 5.
0, 5. The X is 0, the Y is 5. What if you had a line crossing right through that value right there? 0, 2, right? What if it was down here, crossing right there? 0, -2. What if you had a Y-intercept just going flat right here? 0, -4, right? Now, what do you notice about all of these Y-intercepts?
They all have the X coordinate
The
0.
X value 0, the X value 0, the X value 0, the X value 0. So if you want to find the Y-intercept, you know for a fact that your X value has to be 0. So algebraically, what we have over here, algebraically, in order to find your Y-intercept, you have to set X equal to 0 and solve. Okay? Let's continue reading on our notes. It says, Finding the x and y intercepts is also a good way to graph the line of the equation. It's not as fast as y equals mx plus b, which we're going to learn later. We're going to learn that later, but it's still a good way to graph. So ignore this part right here because you don't know what I'm talking about when I say y equals mx plus b. We're going to learn that later and next couple of sections. But for right now, let's actually do this example. Ladies and gentlemen, is this a function form equation?
Yes.
Function form.
Oh, no.
It's not function form, right? Function form is y by itself. Could you rewrite it in function form?
Yes.
Yeah, you could. I could get the y by itself, get it in function form, and then I could make an xy table and I could plug in inputs and outputs, right? But instead of doing that, guys, what I want to do is recognize that this is a standard form equation, and I'm going to find the x and the y intercepts of this standard form equation, and I'll have the location of where it crosses my x and where it crosses my y, and I'll be able to graph the line with those two dots. So let's this is the way to set it up. I always write my equation, and then I write x int, y int, and then I put a squiggly line to separate the work. Now, to find the x-intercept, what do we do? To find the x-intercept, what do we do? It says right above. To find the x-intercept, set y equal to 0. And I'm going to put that in a little cloud because that's what you need to know. To find the x-intercept, you have to set y equal to 0. I mean, if we go back to the notes up here, that's exactly what it says up here. It says right here, in order to find your x-intercept, we must set y equal to 0. In order to find your y-intercept, you must set x equal to 0. Okay? So down here, I want to find my x-intercept. I'm going to set y equal to 0. How am I going to find my y-intercept? I'm going to set x equal to 0. Set x equal to 0. I'm going to put this in a little cloud because this is what I need to know in order to be able to find the x and y-intercepts. So what do I mean by finding the x-intercept, set y equal to 0? I need to take this standard form equation, and I need to set the y value equal to 0. Here's the y value. I'm going to plug in a 0 right there. So it's going to be 3x plus 6y, but I'm going to plug in a 0 right in there, equals 6. So when we work this out, 6 times 0 is what? 0. So that's just gone. So what you really have is just 3x equals 6. Divide by 3 on both sides, and you get x equals 2. Ladies and gentlemen, what did we just find right now? The x intercept. The x intercept. Now, what this is saying right here is saying it's going to cross your x-axis at the value of 2. Okay? So if you wanted it in the form of a coordinate, in the form of an ordered pair, what's your x value? It says right there, x equals 2. So your x value is definitely 2. What's your y value? What does it say up here? Set y equal to 0. So your y value is 0. So your coordinate for the x-intercept, you could say your x-intercept is 2. Now what does that mean? That it crosses at 2. Or you could say the coordinate 2, 0. When we go to the graph over here, let's go to the x-intercept 2, 0. So you're going to go 2 on the x, 0 on the y, and you're going to put a dot right there. Okay, so let's do that. Put a dot right there, 2, 0. That is your x-intercept. Now you know that the line has to cross through here. Maybe it crosses like this. Maybe it crosses like this. Maybe it's totally flat. Maybe it's just crossing with a little bit of an angle going up, right? So we don't know until we find the other y-intercept, okay? So let's go back over here and find the y-intercept. And how do we find the y-intercept? You set x equal to 0 and solve. So over here, when I set x equal to 0, it's going to be 3, but instead of times x, I'm going to put a times 0 in there. And then plus 6y equals 6. So what's 3 times 0? 0. So I could just scratch it out if I want to. I mean, I could put 0 if I want. But my new equation is just simply 6y equals 6. And yeah, you tell me what to do. Divide by 6, perfect. And y equals 1. Now, what did we just find? Yeah, we found the y-intercept. Now, this says y equals 1. It's telling you that it's going to cross your y-axis at 1. So if you go to the y-axis, which is the one that points to the sky, and you go to the value of 1, that's where it's going to cross, right? So let's go to the y-axis, let's go to the value of 1 and put a dot right there. That's where it's going to cross, okay? So again, if you wanted to write it as a coordinate for your y-intercept value, the coordinate is an x value and a y value. You just found out that the y is 1, so you put a 1 right there. And the x we said was 0 from the original, so you put a 0 right here. So the coordinate is 0, 1. So I guess just be careful. If they say, give me the coordinate of the y-intercept, then you would say 0, 1. But if they just say, give me the y-intercept, you would just say y equals 1, that it crosses the y-axis at 1. Anyways, how many points do we actually need to graph a line?
2.
How many points do we have?
2.
We're done. Let's graph it and we're done, right? So you just put the line right through it, and you could put arrows on it. Arrow that way, arrow this way. Now, sometimes we get lines that are pretty short and we want the lines to be longer, and it really does go forever because there's arrows on both sides of it. But if you wanted to actually be precise, I mean, one option is to get a ruler and make it go right through there and you draw it. Another option is to realize the pattern of the dots from one to another. So from this dot to this dot, I'm going down 1 over 2. So if I continue that pattern of down 1 over 2, I'll get to this next dot. So notice, I'm going to make this perfectly straight extended line without a ruler. And not only that, I want to go backwards. I want to go over 2, up 1. Over 2, up 1. Over 2, up 1. And I'm going to put a dot right here. And then I want to continue to go over 2 and up 1. So what I'm doing here is showing you how to extend your line without a ruler by using the pattern of your points, of the 2 points. So if for some reason your line is too short, you want to make it longer, just use the pattern of the 2 points that you have of your x and y intercepts and extend your line. Okay, so let's take a look up here. More examples. You want to find the x and the y intercepts of the following. So number 1, this is a standard form equation. Let's find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And this is what I always do. I always put like a little title to what the area of the work I'm going to do. I put x int, y int. I put a squiggly line in between them. Now for the x-intercept, I'm going to set y equal to 0 and solve. Now notice that I instead of the y, I put parentheses, and I'm going to put a 0 right in there. Because for the x-intercept, I must set y equal to 0. Maybe I forgot to do that, little cloud. Set y equal to 0 and solve. So the 4 times 0 cancels out, and I have a new simple equation, negative 3x equals 12. And of course, I divide by negative 3 on both sides. And I get the answer x equals negative 4. And that is an x-intercept. If I wanted the actual coordinate, the x value is negative 4. And the y value, we said y was set equal to 0, so the y value has to be 0. That's your coordinate of where it's going to cross the y-axis. Now for my y-intercept, I'm also going to set x equal to 0. Well, not also, but to find the y-intercept, you set x equal to 0. To find the x-intercept, you set y equal to 0. So I'm going to rewrite my equation. Negative 3, but instead of times x, I'm going to put a times 0. And then it says plus 4y equals 12. So let me write that right here. Plus 4y equals 12. And of course, negative 3 times 0 is 0. You could write it if you want. But I'm just going to erase, put a line through it, put 4y equals 12. Final step is to divide by 4. Divide by 4. Y equals 3. And if you think about what we just found, we found that it's going to cross the y-axis at 3. If you wanted it in the form of a coordinate of an ordered pair, your x value was 0 because that's what we set originally, x equals 0, and the y value is 3. So my y value is 3. Now let's graph both of those. The x-intercept is negative 4. So let me go to the x-axis. Go to negative 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. Put a dot right there. That's where it crosses the x-axis. The y-axis intercept, the y-intercept is 3. So go 1, 2, 3. Put a dot right there. There's my dot. All I need to do now is connect the dots, and I have my line, and I put arrows on it. And I'm done. That's how you do this. Now, once we really understand that, it'll become even easier to do, like showing all this work. I recommend you show the work. But later on, once you understand it and you're really good at it, you will be able to actually cover up, like right here, I'm going to cover up the y value. And to find the x-intercept, if you cover up the y, and just imagine this equation, negative 3x equals 12, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, your answer is x equals negative 4. That's how you find the x-intercept. And then to find the y-intercept, all you got to do is cover up the x value and look at this remaining equation. Just divide by 4, y equals 3. And as you can see, that's what our y-intercept was. It was y equals 3. So you could find the x and the y-intercept simply by covering the y and solving the equation. That'll give you the x-intercept. And then covering up the x and solving for y, that'll give you the y-intercept, right? Because after all, when I say set y equal to 0, that just makes it disappear. So you could just visually see the simple equation, negative 3x equals 12, and solve it, and you get x equals negative 4, and that was our x-intercept. So anyhow, how about we try, actually, I'm out of time. How about I stop right here, and you guys try this next one over here. So this next one, of course, I want you to show your work by writing down x int, y int, squiggly line in between, and also maybe do the little cloud saying to find the x-intercept, we set y equal to 0 and solve. To find the y-intercept, we set x equal to 0 and solve. But remember, it's as easy as this. To find the x-intercept, all you got to do is kind of like cover up your y, and you'll have the x-intercept 3. To find the y-intercept, it's kind of like covering up your x and solving for y. So right here, you'd have to divide by negative 12, divide by negative 12, and you get the fraction y equals negative 1/2. So we'll pick it up from here on the next video.